There are three really important things about the federal judiciary. And the first one is probably one you've already thought of, which is separation of powers. When the framers set up the Constitution, they set up each branch of government to have a certain power. So the legislative branch will make the laws, the executive branch will execute those laws, and then the judicial branch interprets the laws. But the funny thing about it is they can't interpret the law until someone asks them to. Someone has to bring a case to the judicial branch so that they can do their power. Now, they're very powerful, but they're very passive because they have to wait for someone else to act first. The second thing, and the thing that really makes separation of powers work the best, is the idea of judicial review, where the Supreme Court or other federal courts can review the actions of the president, the Congress, state legislatures, to make sure that they follow along with what the Constitution says. The idea of judicial review was not in the original Constitution, and one of the most famous Supreme Court cases in history is the case Marbury versus Madison in 1803. John Marshall was the Chief Justice. And the thing that this very complicated case did, basically, was it told Congress, look, you've passed a law that doesn't follow with the Constitution. Therefore, that law has to be unconstitutional. The third thing that any good citizen and any student of government would really be interested to learn about right now is the confirmation and selection process for federal judges. There are 9 judges on the U.S. Supreme Court. There are 214 total federal judges, and all of these judges are selected by the U.S. President, and then they are confirmed by the Senate by a majority vote. Take President Obama, for example. He's going to be in office for either 4 or 8 years. He's made several picks for the U.S. Supreme Court, Sonia Sotomayor, for example, Elena Kagan. Those women are going to sit on the court for 10, 20, 30 years. That's way longer than Obama will be in office. So he will have an impact on the decisions of the federal judiciary for decades, much longer than he's in office. So when the Supreme Court makes decisions, they rely on past cases known as stare decisis. So the major Supreme Court case on campaign finance is a case called Buckley versus Valeo. It was decided in 1976. That's the very first time that the U.S. Supreme Court said that spending is speech. And that's important because speech is afforded extremely high protections under the First Amendment. So whenever you spend $1 in a campaign, that's protected under the First Amendment. Because the Supreme Court set such a high threshold in that instance, it made it very difficult for Congress to regulate any other kind of campaign spending. So, for example, when Congress passed the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act, the Supreme Court interpreted that and they struck down portions of the act based on their holding in Buckley versus Valeo. So it's a good example of them using a prior case, a precedent, and then exercising judicial review to have a major impact on public policy.